Yeah,
That,
you know,
that
I'm
just,
I'm Johnny on the spot with Craig. What can I
God,
say?
that just catches me off guard every single time it happens.
There should be a way we can record Craig saying recording so that like our listeners can hear it too. Like Pat, what we just need like a sound bite. We need like a sound file for just Craig so that our
So you need me
listeners.
to be recording the recording of Craig.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you remember like back in, I don't know, the early 2000s when you'd try and like record a music video on your phone off of your TV. It's like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But guys, just so you know, listeners out there, just so you know, we're not overreacting. Craig's really creepy.
Yeah. And like the icon that I get when I tell him to record is like this creepy bear in front of a microphone.
Yeah. He's got this like dead-eyed stare.
It's an interesting choice, right? Because like in like today's like the day and age of technology, you could choose almost any voice for a computer, like a machine voice, right? Like a machine application. Like we have Siri. You can put Siri in different like accents, right? Like there's an Australian version for Siri, which I think is kind of sexy.
I mean, Google Chrome or Google and Alexa can do that too, and yet for some reason Craig doesn't have an option.
No, I think he does, but the developers chose to make him as creepy as possible.
So this is a choice, is what you're saying.
I think it is. I think it's intentional.
But hear me out. We are still very much thankful to the developers of Craig for creating this this plugin for Discord.
100%. It's just creepy.
Not a sponsor.
Yeah, maybe come up with a new voice, guys. Just saying.
Yeah, just a little taste.
That'd be nice.
Give Craig a girlfriend. Where's like
Craig at?
No, Craig. That's a terrible version. I don't know. There's not like a female version of Craig. It's not like Michael to Michelle. You know?
Yeah.
Like a Donna or a Deborah or a.
I don't know. Listeners, figure it out for us. What would female Craig be?
Linda?
Linda?
What the fuck?
I don't know.
Linda.
It's a real Linda's world out there.
I saw something on Instagram or somewhere that said it was like a video saying no one is born a Linda. It just happens when you're 30. You're just created as a Linda.
It's true. That's an entire episode of Kimmy Schmidt. Titus thinks it's super weird that a guy named his baby Linda.
Yeah, that is weird. I've never heard of a child being named Linda.
Because there are none. They become Linda when they're 30 and they move into like middle management and HR.
Makes perfect sense.
That's amazing.
My friends, what lays before you is the myriad knowledge of an unfathomable universe. Join our intrepid remembrancers as they explore the heresy as history. From deep within the farthest reaches of the great library of Tiska, we are the Heresy Grad School. So said the War Master in his wisdom. Go forth, my sons, and illuminate them.
Well, hello listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Heresy Grad School. We're starting our coverage on the Sisterhood of Silence.
Ooh. Definitely the Sisters of Silence, Patrick.
Sorry, the Sisters of Silence.
Spooky.
He's very spooky.
So guys, this is a great this is going to be a lot of fun. So we're gonna talk to you guys about the Sisters of Silence, but we're gonna do a little bit of housekeeping first to sort of give us some time to let you know where you should be going in your reading, what source material you need. This is like our syllabus episode, right? So, and then we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I need to do a little bit of housekeeping to clean up the very last episode we did on Paramar. So, thanks for listening, guys.
I didn't catch that.
Oh, that was weird. Random.
Hey, Siri isn't part of this cast.
Fucking random Siri going off. Okay, so what should we do first, Pat? Should we do some housekeeping, or should we talk about where we're going with the Sisters of Silence?
Let's do some real quick housekeeping, and then we'll barge right into Sisters.
I agree. All right. So the very last episode of Paramar, if you guys were listening, Pat actually mentioned that he didn't know what the strength of the Ordo Sinister was that deployed to Prospero, right? And so we put that out to you guys. Nobody came back. No worries. But we're going to go ahead and clean that up right now. So on page 22 of book 7, you will find the sort of deployment list of the censure host from Terra. Now, this is different than the deployment list from the censure host of the legions, right? This is just these are the forces that came from Terra, from the Segmentum Solar. So it does not include the legions. But at the very bottom of that list on page 22, the red call-out box, you will see that the Chamber Occidentalis of the Ordo Sinister, 5 Psi Titans of the Ordo Sinister, all Warlord Psi Titan machines. So I think it's a pretty safe assumption that all 5 of them deployed to the surface of Prospero for the burning and the censure of Prospero. And I think, Pat, we talked a little bit about this. Are there other classes of Psi Titan? Not that I can tell.
And also, that seems an awful lot of anti-psyker power, considering how expensive these are as a resource to both build and maintain.
So this was a full quarter of the strength of the Ordo Sinister.
Yeah, that seems like.
So there are 4. Yep. So there are 4 chambers. There are 4 fortress crypts built into Terra. We know that because of page 136, where we go into the Ordo Sinister lore a little bit more. We won't do that right here, but we know that there are 4 fortress crypts, which have about, 5 Titans each, all Warlord class. So we can surmise. It's not specifically stated. But we can surmise that there are 20 Warlord Psi Titans on Terra at any given time, unless they're deployed. So I think that's all I wanted to say on that bit of housekeeping. And I think we can move forward now into the syllabus episode.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Cool. Yeah, so guys, this is really cool. This is the episode that our Patreon listeners or Patreon supporters voted on. So for those of you who are not on Patreon, we're doing this because the folks that support us have asked for it. So I think it's going to be really cool. I wanted to do this for a long time. I've wanted to get into the lore of the Astra Telepathica and the Anathema Psychana and the Sisters of Silence. So what I want to do now for this episode is just kind of tee it up, right? Just say where we're going and how long I think it's going to take us to get there. So a couple of resources you're going to want as we explore, the Sisters of Silence. Definitely book 7, Inferno, if you have access to that. We'll reference a lot from that. But there's some other sources that you're going to want as well. And there's some new things that are coming out on the Sisters of Silence that are pretty interesting. In this last White Dwarf, we actually got some lore that showed up in both fiction and rules from the Sisters of Silence, which is pretty cool. Seems kind of fortuitous in terms of timing. So if you can get your hands on the latest White Dwarf, I think that'll be cool as well. But the whole Black books, the whole Black library, we don't know a lot about the Sisters of Silence. They sort of lived in the art and the Alan Bly art and the Ian Watson art for a long time without being sort of explicitly explored. But yeah, so I think this would be really fun to go down the rabbit hole on these, on this very unique and unusual part of the Warhammer 40,000 universe.
It's like fate, Dave, that it was in the most recent White Dwarf, because I remember you sent me those pictures and I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, does he do the sisters now have a codex? And like, I just didn't even see it.
It is. It is. I know. I love that. You know, it feels like it's the right time to talk about these kinds of things.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to talk about this a little bit tonight, and we're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole, but we're going to start talking about the sisters from the beginning of book 7. So if you guys go to page 14 of book 7, you'll start to see the Council of Nicaea. And the only thing I want to point out on this page is the only representative from the Astro Telepathica, of which the Sisters of Silence are a part of. We'll get into that. We'll get into how they sort of fit into the Astro Telepathica. But there is only one representative from the Astro Telepathica on the Council of Nicaea, and that is so about halfway down, the Oculix Magister Jalisco de Jericho Suerta. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but
I mean, it's the 31st millennium. I don't think anybody's going to really dock you on that.
Not sure if the accent has survived, but so the interesting thing is they have expressed avowed neutrality, right? So we're talking about an order of psychers, sanctioned, of course, right? Astrotelepaths, sanctioned psychers, sanctioned by the emperor, and then you have this sort of discrete organization off to the side, which we'll talk about, the Sisters of Silence. But they're at the Council of Nicaea, and they're saying neither yay or nay. It's probably the most powerful psyker in the Imperium, which they must know, right? And they must have some idea of what the Thousand Sons and Magnus are capable of, but yet they're not throwing their lot in with, anyone who's specifically for or against, which is interesting, I think. When you look at the other sort of neutral sides, right? There aren't very many. So I thought that was interesting just to point that out. The next sort of opening lore I want to go to is page 16. Page 16 is this beautiful decree for censure. So this is the official decree of censure for the burning of, well, it's not the burning of Prospero, but the censure of Magnus and the censure of Prospero, right? Supposed to bring him back. But what I will say about this is if you look on the left-hand side, start at the top, you have the original sort of raptor, which I'm assuming is the custodes. And then you go down, not sure what that is. That's seal. Pat, Jason, do you guys know what that is?
You're talking on 17, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got Thunder Warriors up at the top, or what look like Thunder Warriors. I know it's not. And then you got the Mechanicum over on the right. And then Pax Imperialis, so that's that would be like, that's not the Imperial Navy, that's militia, right?
Yeah, I think that would be the like the Astra not the Astra Militarum, but the yeah.
And then the bottom is Custode / the actual Emperor. And then you've got the Sisters, and then I'm not quite sure about the symbol with the squiggly marking on the left. Or you're talking about the one that's in the middle on the left side?
It's in the middle on the left, yeah. So I'm not sure what that is. We'll have to go back on that. But I know the one on the bottom is the Silent Sisterhood.
Yeah. The one on the right is what, Dave? It's like a hawk with its wings extended.
So obviously one of these is sort of the High Lords, right? They're the War Council at this point. So they're the War Council because they haven't transitioned into the High Lords of Terra. So these are this is the council that's the guiding hand sort of the Great Crusade. So I'm not sure where they are. The one at the top on the right is definitely the Martian delegate, but I don't think that's been codified yet into the Adeptus Mechanicum. So that the sort of the binary secession hasn't happened yet.
Right. So it would make sense then. It's just Calbor Hall's own.
Yes.
sigil.
Seal. Yeah, I would agree. And so, Pat, you think that is Cal?
I mean, it would only make sense if this is the document that was ratified at the Council of Nicaea. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it just goes hand in hand. You have the cog there, you have the half mechanical skull, and then you have the dual
Axe
Mechanicum
blades.
power axes or axe blades or what have you. It at least makes sense to me. But yeah, no, I'm definitely intrigued by like the middle on the left side and the very bottom on the right. So
Yeah, we'll have to do some more research on that, guys, and come back to you. But I just wanted to point that out from sort of a lore perspective, that the decree to censure Prospero had to be sort of stamped off by these organizations before before the action actually took place. So that's interesting. On page 2122, we get to the censure host. So these are, again, this is the Terran contingent. We talked a little bit about this earlier with the Psi Titans and the Chamber Occidentalists. But what I wanted to talk about here is the Silent Sisterhood deployed 3,000 sisters militant, constituting 3 full vigils of the Silent Sisterhood. So what we can surmise from this is that a full vigil is 1,000 Sisters of Silence, which is a powerful sort of idea, right? Because we know that they normally deploy in cadres or cadres. We don't know what cadres mean right now. We don't know what their size and sort of, I guess, disposition is. But we know that at least a full vigil in the Great Crusade is 1,000 Sisters of Silence gathered together, and we have 3 of them.
that's a lot of sisters.
That's a lot of sisters. I mean, when you think about so I think, Pat, we've talked about this before. At least the natural occurrence of a psychic null is like 1 in a billion.
Right. But 1,000 is like, I mean, 3,000. Like, let's do.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about 300 billion people to just. That's. I mean, obviously not going to play out, but so the natural occurrence of psychers is very rare, or nulls is very rare. But so we've got a significant force dedicated to this censure host.
Let's just say Magnus had a bit of a migraine that day.
Yeah, we know. I mean, we know.
Oh yeah, no, I mean we know,
Yeah.
but like, just the magnitude of it is impressive. And then like you even look, I know we're not getting to Custodes in this episode per se, but 982 warriors.
Yeah.
Were in the host. Like, that's a whole hell of a lot of Custodes. Actually, that's almost all of the Custodes, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Right.
I think there were 10,000, but it's a significant amount of custodes. And yeah, the fact that there are 91 separate soldates of the Legio Custodes, I think is significant. So I think all of those things are sort of painting the backdrop for where we're going here with the Sisters of Silence, which is really a deep exploration of the lore, of where they come from, how did they come to be, who are they, how do they function in the Great Crusade, how do they function in the Heresy, and then sort of what is their, what is their legacy. So we're going to go to page 122. I don't think we're going to talk about it, but we're going to go to 122 just to talk about it a little bit.
And I mean, the the sigil of them is actually even creepier than the idea of them all being gnolls, if you think about it. Like, I mean, earring skull with a half mask and tendrils and shit. But, again, that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, so it's pretty cool artwork.
Oh, yeah. No, it's beautiful artwork. But it's still
Yeah.
creepy.
I mean, it's the grim dark, Pat. Everything's creepy. So here's what I wanted to do. Let's just look at let's look at page 122. We won't go any further. We'll sort of look at it and talk about it so that you have the formal title of the sisterhood, the Silent Sisterhood of the Great Tithe. That's their formal title. And then you have their banner, which is the Divisio Investigates of the Divisio and the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. So this is a point that I'm going to come back to, but like the Divisio Invest is really an interesting idea. We've talked about it a little in the past, I think, when we got into book 8. But they're very, they're almost like a secret service within the Astra Telepathica. So, and then what is their magisterium? It's the Lex Majoris Psychana. So they have authority within accorded duty, subject to the review only of the Lords Imperial of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica and the offices of the Imperial household. So really, they have wide breadth and depth to execute their duties. Some of their informal names are the Sisters of Silence, the Witch Seekers, the Pale Scourge, the Soulless Ones, the Null Maidens, the Irene, the Daughters of the Abyss. Their legal remit is wherever the shadow of the Emperor falls. And the domains, the places where they are the Somnus Citadel. We know that it's on Luna. That's their headquarters. The Magdan Orbital Construct, which is a place of anchorage for the Black Ships. Cold Alpha, Prison Fortress, Titan Orbit, Sol System. Star One, Silent Harbor, Tacent Astra. Those are code designations believed to be planetary systems within Segmentum Solar given over to the secure processing of the tithe. Their locations are unknown or prohibited, probably both. So this is some of the lore that I really, really want to get into, and I've got some ideas. I think I know where Star One is. I'll make that case. Yeah, I'll make that case in a later episode, but I think I know where Star One is.
See, I never thought that the Silent Sisterhood would have so much. I mean, I guess to make it simple, property. Like, I mean, I understood that like they're definitely like their job is to deal with psychers, and there's the tithe and everything like that. And I knew about the prison in Titan's orbit, which I mean makes sense. It lines up with some of the Grey Knight stuff that you read.
But think about it, Pat. So what they're doing, what the Sisters of Silence are doing with the Great Tithe, is they're going out into the galaxy and really collecting up all the human beings with psychic potential, any degree of psychic potential, right? From alpha level psyker, alpha plus, all the way down to sort of latent psyker, right? And they're bringing them back for processing, either to become, so if they pass sort of, initial screening, then they can go and be, processed into the, Astra Telepathica, either as Astra Telepaths or potentially Primaris Psychers for the new battle program that the Imperium is starting. Potentially, they could even become candidates for more powerful roles as psychers, right? But this sorting can't happen on Terra, right? You don't want to.
Yeah, of course. That's a fuck ton of psychic energy just
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Enough already there with the Emperor there.
Yeah. You would not want to bring the most dangerous people in the galaxy back to the most important, sort of place in humanity, in the realm, right? You don't want to bring them back to Terra. So you've got to sort them somewhere. And so the sorting takes place somewhere in the Segmentum Solar at these 4 locations maybe, where they're sorted out and they're sort of put into different bins and then they're sent forward. So I think that's really cool in terms of meta plot, right? That they're thinking, that the authors are thinking about this, right? That's sort of it's really the deep imagining of how this takes place, this great tithe. And then it also gives us really some very interesting narrative arcs in terms of, well, really, how does this play out? These are systems or these are planets that are really don't show up on any map, right? Even the most classified, top secret astro maps, astrological maps are not going to show these places. So, I mean, that's fucking black ops, man. I mean, that is the definition, right? You've got sort of these black sites out there where this stuff is happening and nobody knows about it except for the Divisio Investigatis of the Astro Telepathica. So I just wanted to sort of be maybe a little more explicit about that than I need to, because I think when people think about the Astro Telepathica, they're thinking, oh yeah, these guys are like, the laymen of the Imperium. They're just pushing paper, they're passing messages, they're the astral choir that's out there at the relay station. But like, no, man, there's like a secret arm of these guys that's out there doing work. So,
and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, also those guys are quite fearful of the secret arm of their organization. I mean, if you're a psyker and a black ship shows up on your world, you better hope you've been crossing your I's and dotting your T's or having the correct nervous psychic dream interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not even sure that most of the Imperium would know at this point, what a black ship would mean. It would certainly be only the high level, sort of Imperium.
And I mean, whether they would see it, to be honest with you, if you think about it, they talk about how much stealth technology that they use. And, it could just be there, zap some sisters down to the surface, they pick up some psychers, and then they disappear.
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely. I mean, that's what they do. And, and it's interesting when you sort of peel back, I think the curtain on this. What is the Emperor most fearful of? Right. And the Emperor is most fearful of chaos, right? These entities that exist outside of our understanding, but not his, right? So he understands what they are. He understands how they can get in. He also, we know, wants to shepherd humanity into the webway, and create sort of this safe environment for human beings to become psychically ascendant. This plays it nicely to where we are right now in M42, right, with sort of psychic awakening. It's taken 10,000 years, but we'll see where this goes. So he's most fearful of these latent psychers out there in the galaxy. And I think this was a huge impetus for the Emperor to begin the Unification Wars and the Great Crusade. I mean, you have to ask yourself from the deep lore perspective, why did the Emperor wait until M29 to start the Unification Wars? Why did the Emperor wait until humanity was at the brink of species extinction? What was the impetus? What was the reason driving? And we don't know, but we can sort of surmise that it was it was this emergence of psychic awakening. That these psychers were becoming even more prevalent than they were during Old Night. And he wanted control of that. He wanted control of the psychers in the human psychers in the galaxy. And this was really the impetus for the Great Crusade, that it wasn't just to unite humanity against the Xenos threat. It wasn't just to unite humanity into some sort of fascist totalitarian rule, but it was the Emperor with his foresight saying, we got to go police these people up, and we got to go get them, bring them home, sort them, take the dangerous ones out. And obviously it's control, right? So I think that's really interesting. And I think that's sort of where the Sisters of Silence, that's where the narrative arc is going to take us. So
very cool, Dave.
Yeah.
And go ahead. Sorry.
No, we'll explore some Easter eggs, because there that I just found
a lot of them.
Yeah, there really are, and so, should I give you guys just one?
Oh, give him a little taste, Dave.
Give him a little taste. All right.
Give him a little bit of that razzle dazzle.
All right. So we'll wait for Jason to come back and read us sort of the first couple of pages. But on page 125, you have the mention of. So page 125, you have at the very top the foundation of the Divisio Investigates. I promised you guys I would come back to this. So let's come back to this right now. As surprising as it may be, evidence suggests, at least upon the surface, that the Silent Sisterhood as it now stands was not part of the initial pattern of the Imperium's forces laid down by the Master of Mankind. There are those, however, who contest this and claim that what became the Silent Sisterhood long dwelt in the shadows awaiting their time. It is doubtless true, regardless of this, that a number of so-called untouchables did serve under the banners of unification, but evidence suggests that, understandably, perhaps they did so at a remove both from the Emperor himself and his aide and minister, Malcador, the vizier to the Lord of Lightning, the both of them being psychers of prodigious strength, with he who was to be emperor, the greatest psycher humanity has ever known. These soulless servants were, according to such rumors that persist from those times, in the nature of covert agents and assassins, and few in number, rather than a distinct militant order. In fact, the only analog in ancient Terran history for the Sisters of Silence, as they are now known, can be found in the Akashic records of an entirely different age and hue. The darkly famed Hollow Ones, who served the unspeakable king, himself by some legends a psychic null in the terrible lost centuries of Terra's age of strife before the coming of the Emperor. Okay, so, right? So when I read that,
that's a lot.
I got chills.
Unpack right there.
A lot to unpack. Here's what I want you guys to do, is go find out whatever you can about the unspeakable king, because we'll come back to him. And that right there, guys, is an Easter egg that I stumbled on. That is the rabbit hole is deep. So very cool. The unspeakable king. He's part of this whole story arc of the Sisters of Silence from the very beginning. So we'll come back to that.
Go find them, listeners.
That's your homework assignment for this episode of Heresy Grad School.
Whew, smooth transition.
Jason, what are we calling your episode? Like Lost Lore, Lost Rules?
I have no idea. That's a good question. I feel
The
like
shit you should know by Jason.
I mean, if you guys are going to make me keep doing it, it does need a catchy title. Other than just da-da-da, use rules right.
No. Yeah, it definitely needs a good title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll work on
like,
that.
I came up with like the Bourbon Diaries off the top of my head, but I can't do it for like my own segment.
Can't do it for yourself. I know it's always like that.
It's like you can't
listeners,
choose
the
your own
first
nickname.
episode of the Bourbon Diaries is out for our Patreon listeners. So go ahead and go check that out. And if you're not a patron,
it out.
Think about patroning us. We're cool dudes. We give you cool content.
Like something like the Esoterica could be cool, right?
I like that.
The Esoterica, like this lost binder of rules that people don't know exist, but really do exist, but they don't know how to use them.
Yeah. Oh, it's just like the Mechanicum in 40K. It's like they know vaguely what stuff does, but they aren't sure how it works really. And they just hope if they throw some prayers and some sacred oils at it, that it'll work like it's supposed to.
Yes.
Oh, that's perfect.
I love it.
That's pretty fantastic.
All right. Now we know. Well, guys, tonight's Esoterica is the blind rule. Now, blind is very special and very near and dear to my heart because it is both the greatest strength, and I'll let you in on a little secret, it's one of the greatest weaknesses of the Mechanicum at large.
Shh, don't tell them our secrets.
Well, guys, see, that's the thing that really throws folks off. Blind is probably one of the least used rules I can think of, specifically because it's really, really hard to get it in an Astartes Legion list. The only two places I can think of are defensive grenades, which now with the rework to breacher shields are a lot harder to come by. Or, if you've got a Praevian, you can take Castellax with Darkfire Lances. And I'm sure there's like one or two others I'm missing. There's the Raven Guard, their special Storm Eagle, has blind missiles instead of the normal missile pods. But it's hard to come by. So blind is a really simple rule, but it's spectacular in its application.
It ruins everyone's day, by the way. Sorry to interject.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, Pat's right. It ruins everybody's day like a third of the time, and it's great. So, blind, very, very simple. It's an initiative test, which is your statistic or under on a d6 roll to pass. And if your initiative test is failed, all models in the unit are reduced to weapon skill and ballistic skill 1 until the end of their next turn. So, a couple of things about that. It's a single test per phase, regardless of how many hits are taken from a blind weapon. Now, that's important too, is it's hits. It's not like pinning, which has to cause a casualty for a leadership check to happen. You only have to hit a unit with a blind weapon for it to force a blind check. And this is terrific because it's essentially a 1 in 3 chance of making a unit of Astartes useless for a turn. Same deal, it's a 1 in 6 chance for making a unit of Custodians useless for a turn. And let me tell you, Mechanicum punch bots that are weapon skill 3 and 4 really appreciate it in close combat when half of their attacks don't automatically disappear when they have to roll 4s to hit. So, in addition, besides close combat, it's the obvious, bonus of everything but template weapons are now pretty god-awful inaccurate. Now, another important thing to notice is it does not force snapshots, it just reduces things to ballistic skill 1. So, template weapons like flamers are still going to hit automatically and they're not going to be bothered by it. Another thing to note is a unit obviously has to have an initiative characteristic to be affected. So things like vehicles, buildings aren't affected. Things like knights, titans, walkers like dreadnoughts are affected, and typically they don't have that great of an initiative. So if you roll it back around and check out some of the statistics of Mechanicum units, you're seeing like 3s for Castellax, Myrmidons, Thalax, Ursarax, all initiative 2. Not a big fan of blind checks. So the funniest thing you will ever see is like last weekend at the Williamsburg Muster, our correspondent Ryan from the main cast, he and I had a Mechanicum off, my Trader Mechanicum versus his Loyalist Mechanicum, and it was hilarious because we each had a ton of Thalax with photon thrusters, and we were blinding each other back and forth. It was a pretty magical time.
Was it just like a giant slap fest? Because you're like standing back, just like throwing hands at each other.
Oh yeah, Ryan has like 12 Myrmidons in his
It's
list.
an ungodly amount of Myrmidons.
And it was the only way I survived through all of those Myrmidons was to blind as many of them as I could. But what's great though is as a Mechanicum player, you have exactly one unit that can stand up to blind checks well, and that's whatever your unit your Magos is in, because he has the Cyber Familiar. Now, associated with the blind check really closely for Mechanicum is the Cyber Familiar. Everybody remembers that it gives you +1 to invulnerables. It's basically all they remember. What they tend to forget is any characteristic check that is not leadership can be re-rolled. So
Ooh.
strength checks, initiative checks, toughness checks, all of those can be re-rolled. It's great because it even basically the best initiative you're going to get on units like that for like a Magos is 3 or 4. So it essentially doubles your chance of not failing that blind check. Now, the last thing we need to talk about when it comes to blind is the tiny controversy associated with it, and when exactly those checks are taken. Now, most of the time it's not going to matter, because if you wing a blind shot off somebody, they fail it, the next time they go to shoot, they're a ballistic skill 1. However, it says specifically in the rules, any unit hit by 1 or more models with weapons with a special rule take an initiative check at the end of their current phase. Where this makes a big difference is the assault phase, because if you have a unit that is hit in Overwatch by a unit with a blind weapon, it's going to make a super big deal whether they are coming in at full weapon skill or they're coming in at weapon skill 1. Now, I have heard both sides of this argument ad nauseum. Some people are, now again, this is personal experience, but the smaller subset of folks insist that at the end of the current phase means you wait until after the combat is fought, and then at the end of the assault phase, when everything is said and done, you take a blind check. Now, the other argument I've heard, and personally this is the one I go with, is you take it at the end of the charge phase. So it's possible for that unit to charge you, have a blind shot winged off the guy in the front, then fail that initiative check, and now they're in a combat they can't get out of at weapon skill 1. So the argument against that is, well, technically the charge phase is a sub-phase, not a phase. And the counter argument is, well, conversely, what you're saying is a guy gets flashed in the eyes with lasers and it doesn't affect him till after he's fought that entire round of combat. That's silly. I think it's a little silly, but I can see why the debate is there.
So this has never been FAQ'd, Jason, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
So all of 7th edition and all of Age of Darkness rules. This has never been FAQ'd.
Interestingly, back in 6th edition, where this version of Blind, I think, is where it got started, it was every single hit with a weapon with Blind. So if you had, I don't know, a squad, I don't know how you'd get a squad of guys with blind weapons, but say you winged 6 shots off with blind off a single model, that squad hit by 6 blind weapons has to take 6 blind checks.
Oh, but it doesn't work that
7th
way now.
No, in 7th they changed it to say any unit hit by 1 or more models with weapons with a special rule.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's just 1 per turn.
It's more streamlined, but at the same time, it's all your eggs in one basket. Because if you fail that check, all of your guys are basically blind. Yeah, that's interesting. So I think what we need to do, listeners, help us out with this, right? Write Forge World, write the rules team, Neil and Anush, and I always forget. Is it Emily? I think it is. But write the rules team at Forge World and ask the question, when is this supposed to take effect? I can see both sides of the argument. But yeah, no, that's good. I think, Jason, I'm leaning towards the way you would play it. If you get it off in Overwatch, which is obviously harder to do in the shooting phase, it should take effect immediately. You failed the check, you're now in combat. So you should suffer the penalty for that. Now, yeah.
That doing stuff like that, that like an Astarte squad being stuck in combat that's now at weapon skill 1, is why the Photon Gauntlet is my absolute favorite piece of war gear, second only to the Machinator Array.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's 2 shots at, I think, like range 12 inch, strength 5, AP 2 with blind. And it's amazing because you get 2 chances for that 6. It doesn't even matter if it kills a guy. That's secondary. What's great is that blind check.
Oh, so let's say that this rule really starts to sort of proliferate throughout the community, right? Let's say people start to really use it to its full effect and it becomes like powerful, right? In the meta. What can you do against it? So you can put somebody in a unit that has a higher initiative. So in Mechanicum, what's the highest initiative sort of support character you can put in a unit?
Well, that's where you kind of run into problems because there are not many.
Right.
Magi tend to top out at 3. I think the Archmagos Prime is at 4. The real protection from the Mechanicum independent character is that Cyber Familiar that gives you a reroll.
Which is like, what, 10 points, Jason?
Yeah, like 10, 15.
Okay. It's a piece of war gear that you can put on your guy. Yeah, no, that's really powerful. And I think, again, people forget that it gives you that reroll for characteristic tests.
Yeah, strength and toughness checks are there too. Like, I don't know, strength checks for grav weapons. That's a deal.
Wow. Psychic tests, right?
Oh, yeah, there are a couple of psychic powers that force toughness checks, like hemorrhage. Things like that. That's a good one. Badass.
Yeah.
But for Astartes, it's kind of the same deal. There's nothing you can do to absolutely get rid of it. The risk of failing that blind check. Well, I guess unless you're Perturabo, because his armor just makes him flat immune to blind and concussive. But that's the only instance I can think of. Other than that, having like an independent character in the squad typically bumps them up because you go off the highest initiative in the squad. We'll bump them up to initiative 5. Forge Lords and Tech Marines can take Cyber Familiars for that reroll.
So that's good. I mean, it's a little bit like giving a vet sergeant artificer armor, right? It just gives you a little bit
same deal.
Yeah, I like it. Very cool, man. I think that's. Were we going to talk about anything else? Is there anything else to talk about with blind?
I think that's the length and breadth of it, but honestly,
always buy photon thrusters. That's all I gotta say.
God, I got photon thrusters, like
and you get
photon
lance
gauntlets. Photon thrusters are great. I mean, I always put them on destructor thalax, but really the sort of their anti-tank potential is mediocre at best, because you've got either multi-melta one shot or photon thruster two shots, strength 6, and you are kind of fishing for sixes, with the photon thruster, even with the rerolls. And the multi-melta, I know thalax are ballistic skill 4, but you'd never know it from how many times they miss with that single multi-melta shot.
That sounds good. So defensive grenades, if you had that option as blind, right? If you could get blind grenades as defensive grenades, is that even a thing?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing.
So how would that work?
They're used exactly like assault grenades in the shooting phase. It's actually a really nice kind of supporting tactic for in Solar Auxilia armies, because their Velatari can take shroud bombs, and shroud bombs are defensive grenades, but also you have to take a leadership check if you want to charge them. So anywho, it's terrific for them, especially when combined with like Ogren, because your Velatari can toss a shroud bomb at something and force a blind check, and if they fail it, now they're a lot more susceptible to those weapon skill 3 and 4, Ogren and Velatari. But anyhow, to answer your question, they work exactly like a assault grenade, like a frag grenade, plasma grenade. Their strength, I'm going to say strength 1. They might be strength 2. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, because they're like strength 1 or 2, AP nothing. 8-inch range, just like an assault grenade, small blast, and blind. So as long as you hit a single model in the enemy squad with that small blast template, it forces that initiative check.
So you would only technically have to declare, and this is in the shooting phase.
Yes.
So before you're going to get charged.
Yes.
You hope you can move up within range of the unit that you expect will charge you, right? So there's some hypotheticals here, but you do it. You get there. You throw your grenade. So I think for Solar Auxilia, man, I think you have to be within 6 inches. So you're pretty close. You throw your grenade, but it's a small blast. As long as one guy hits with that, the whole unit's taking a blind check.
Correct.
And it doesn't matter how many other guys chuck a grenade, because you're only going to take one blind check or one shroud check.
Yes.
Okay, so the tactic here is, if you're playing Solar Auxilia, Velatari, and like maybe Power Axe guys, right?
Yeah, that's how I use them.
Yeah, right, exactly. You never see these guys on the table because I think it's hard for people to figure out how to use them. So you move them up, you throw the blind grenade, you get them, and then when the next turn, if they choose to charge in, right, because now they know they're blind. So if they still choose to charge in, then they're weapon skill 1, ballistic skill 1. But anyway, you've bought yourself a turn of essentially not getting shot or getting
They're
charged.
a little, I kind of ironically, because they're supposed to be defensive grenades, I use them less in that defensive role because, I mean, like you described, it's kind of hard with a short range to use them like that. I'd use them a little more offensively.
Yeah.
I'd have a squad of Power Axe Velatari and a squad of the Ogren Char Knights in the, what's the big Gatling gun tank? The Stormlord?
Stormlord, yep.
Yeah, with a good transport capacity. So the Velatari and the Ogren both pile out, they're 6 inches. You get the Velatari to toss a single shroud grenade, and then they can combo charge with the Ogren, whatever big scary unit is hopefully now blind.
Yeah, that's a great little combo. That's a great tactic, man.
Yeah, plus whenever the Solar Auxilia hold hands, they get that bonus to weapon skill.
That's right. Yeah. Very cool, Jason. Well, thanks for taking us down that kind of, it's good, man.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Oh, a good thing to remember, too, is when your opponent's weapon skill is double +1, yours, it's a 5+ to hit. So it definitely helps with like mortals that are kind of squishy and they don't want to be hit by Astartes. As long as your weapon skill is at least 3, then whatever's weapon skill 1 has to roll a 5 to hit you.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
You're still hitting on 3s, though.
Oh, yeah. You're hitting on 3s as long as their weapon skill is 1 less or lower than yours.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. All right, guys. Well, I think we have just given you some food for thought. A little lore bomb and rules bomb there. So,
And of course, we'll have plenty more in the next episode too.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't even know what we're going to do next time. Maybe pinning.
No,
That's
we were
another
gonna
one I really like.
we were gonna do go to ground.
Oh, right. Go to ground. That's
Yeah.
good to go along with pinning.
It is. I think we'll do those two together.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right.
And then Jason, you'll explain the psychic phase.
No,
Oof.
never. Nobody's ever gonna do that.
Nobody wants to do that. I play Thousand Suns. We all play Thousand Suns. Nobody wants that.
Nobody really wants to roll for the psychic phase. Let's be honest here.
Oh, gosh. Get tiny fun aside. I actually played an Ultramarines player recently who took a librarian, and he was going to start to explain the psychic phase to me. And he started out like, so I get these couple of psychic dice, and that's because I get a phase you don't get. And I was like, oh, did you not know I was playing Thousand Suns? Have I got some news for you?
See, I had the exact opposite, Jason. I played a Thousand Suns player who hated the psychic phase, so never used any of his psychic powers.
I mean, they can't all be winners.
I mean, he had Enfeeble and like a couple other decent ones. Like
I don't know, dude. Enfeeble is one of the best psychic powers in the biomancy tree. Like, don't get me wrong. I love to jack up like a single Praetor with Iron Arm and Warp Speed.
which
but
is annoying as hell.
Enfeeble is where it's at, especially as a support when my Thousand Suns are allies and my Mechanicum are my main army, because I have rad grenades all over the place too. It's a good times. Good times.
Yeah, it's good times for you.
I mean, yeah.
Playing Jason, guys, is like, honestly, it's like playing like varsity. It's like JV going into varsity, man. or like maybe it's like middle school. It's like middle school going into a varsity game. Like, you just like don't even fucking know these rules exist, and Jason's pulling them out. It's so nice about it.
All right, so I guess that's the end of the episode, guys. Jason had to duck out a little early, but I'm super happy he got to explain to us how blind works.
Yeah,
because it's fantastic, and if you're a Mechanicum player, use that shit because it annoys everybody else. Yeah, but I guess go into plugs. Dave, you got anything?
I want to say two things. Number one, I want to say thanks to our Patreon listeners that support us on Patreon, because it makes a huge difference in what we can do for the cast in terms of hosting and editing software that we can bring in just to make it more professional, and just the things around the edges that make it easier for us. The second thing I wanted to say is I have a new project. I think we're calling it the Bourbon Diaries. Is that right, Pat?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think right now we're calling it the Bourbon Diaries, which sounds cool to me.
We mentioned it a little bit in this episode, but yeah, go ahead, Dave.
We did mention a little bit, but I'm not sure we.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's cool. So what it is I'm going to be reading the essays from the Black Library authors that are collected in sort of the limited edition Black Library books. So like when a limited edition Black Library book comes out, let's say it's Aaron Dembski Bowden and it's Talons of Horus. There's usually an author's foreword or an author's afterword or some type of author's note at the beginning. And it can be anything from, sort of their idea of what the meta plot is in that book, their character development and arc, or sort of the larger setting in Cosmos. But I find them really powerful. I think they're look behind the curtain of the Warhammer 40,000 universe from the people that are really they're filling it in if they're not creating it. They're shining light into the dark places. And so I find that very intriguing and very that with you guys. And so it's usually no more than 10 or 15 minutes. It's me introducing the context and then me reading the essay. And so that's all it is, guys. And if that's something that sounds interesting to you, just become a patron or Patreon. And then we have a pretty low level tier for that, don't we, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's
like less than $5 or less, right?
Yeah, I don't.
So $5 or less will get you in. It'll get you into the door, and so then you'll get access to that stuff. Eventually, we might put it on to the main cast, or we might release it. I'm not even sure there's that much interest in it. So if that's something you're interested in, this is a way that you can tell us that, hey, you think that's cool and you want to do that, because some of those limited editions are ridiculously expensive. And they go so fast, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, I make an effort to go. And so this is, I think Games Workshop should share those with a broader audience. They should do a collected essays, but maybe they will, maybe they won't.
We can only hope,
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to show. And Pat, we have the first one up, right?
I do believe the first one is up. Yes. Yeah, I think that I was gonna do the same thing. I was just gonna plug Patreon, and listeners, feel free to tell us if we're shoveling this way too hard down your throat. Perfectly understandable. We're just real excited. Because it definitely helps, because it changes from. I mean, it doesn't necessarily make this a job, but again, it helps us in like improving our content, improving our recording software. Yes, we're on Craig right now, but Craig's doing pretty well. But yeah, so, and we're gonna keep on doing a lot of these listeners choose what we do type of series. I mean, Sisters of Silence is a big topic. We're talking maybe 3, maybe 4 episodes, probably, Dave, right? So
at least.
So as a patron, you get first access to that, and then it goes out to everybody else. But you guys decided, so we want to give you that chance to listen to it first. And we're excited about that. The only other thing I'd like to plug is that Pabst Blue Ribbon is actually delicious if you get it almost frozen. So that's all I got. That
Cool.
was my drink of choice this evening. So there you go.
You're drinking frozen Pabst Blue Ribbon?
Close to frozen, where it's like just perfectly crisp, and that's the only way it's palatable. Otherwise, it's just piss water.
It's just slushy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm all out of single malt right now, so it's a sad day in the O'Hare house.
Yeah, it really is, man. You go from single malt to it's a hard transition, man.
I mean, I got to finish all the beer and shit that I brought back from Nova. That's what I'm working on right now.
Wow. That would have been gone in like a week at my house. Bring it over next time, Pat. I'll help you out.
All right. Yeah, sounds like a plan. But I think that's it for us, listeners.
I think so.
Yeah, we hope you all enjoyed. And again, this has been Heresy Grad School signing out. Bye, guys.
See ya.
And for poor Jason, fuck off, Craig.